Hi everyone. In today's lesson, we're going to review a concept called SOHCAH. So you may have heard these words before in your geometry class: sine, cosine, and tangent. Then you might also have seen their abbreviations. The abbreviation of sine is SIN, of the angle A. Cosine, the abbreviation is COS, or cos, of angle A. And tangent, the abbreviation is TAN, of angle A. Now, they all mean something. So, sine is the relationship of opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is the relationship of adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is the relationship of opposite over adjacent. So, we use this little acronym, SOH CAH TOA, to help us remember that. So, I like to even write this in a different way. I like to write it as SOH CAH and then TOA. I like to write it this way because it shows me that sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. Now, a couple of vocabulary words that would be helpful to know is that when you see the word opposite, that means that you want to think across from. And the word adjacent means next to. And we'll talk about what the hypotenuse means in a second. So let's first, before we can do a problem, practice labeling triangles with opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So first things first, in order to use SOHCAH, you are only allowed to use it in right triangles. So we need to make sure that we have a right triangle. So go ahead and draw in that little right angle in B in both places. So this little box here represents the right angle. So if you don't remember that from geometry, you can go ahead and write that down. So here is your right angle. This is the symbol for angle. And that right angle is 90 degrees, right? Remember, a right angle gives us 90 degrees. So we can only use SOHCAH when we have 90-degree angles. So if I tell you that I want you to use angle A, so viewing from angle A would bring us here. This is my viewpoint. I could ask you to view from a different angle. Like I could ask you to view here from angle C, and then this would be my viewpoint. So from angle A, I want us to label the words opposite and adjacent, and as well as the hypotenuse from that angle. So the hypotenuse is the one that we're going to label first. And I'm going to use HYP to abbreviate the word hypotenuse, right? Hypotenuse is HYP. And the hypotenuse is always located across from the 90-degree angle. So if you want to write that, always across from 90-degree angle. So if we were to label now the rest, we need to label opposite. So opposite is across. Across what? From the given angle. So since A is the given angle, there are two sides left to choose from. We have side BC, so I'll even use a highlighter to see it better. We have side BC, or we have side AB. So the one that's across from angle A is BC. So we're going to use OPP to represent opposite. Then that would mean that AB, this side right here, is right next to or adjacent to angle A. So this one is ADJ. We're going to abbreviate it using adjacent. So again, just to recap, the hypotenuse is always across from the 90-degree angle. If I'm asking you from respect to angle A, the opposite side is directly across from it, and the adjacent side is right next to it. You can even say attached to it, right? This side is attached to this angle. So some people like to use that one as well. So you could say attached to angle. That might help. Okay, So let's take a look at the second example. I want to label the picture, but now this time from the viewpoint of angle C. So here is angle C, and I have three sides to choose from. I have side AB, side BC, and side AC. So one of these sides is going to be opposite, the other is going to be the hypotenuse, and the other will be the adjacent. So the one that I like to always label first is the one that is directly across from the 90-degree angle. So the one that's directly across is my hypotenuse. So directly across from my 90-degree angle is my hypotenuse. Now, with respect to angle C, I have two sides left. I have this side and I have this side. So the opposite is the one that's directly across from the angle. So that would be AB. And the BC would be right adjacent to it or right next to it. That would be BC. It's also attached to it. But you want to be careful not to use this one as the attached because that's the hypotenuse, right? Hypotenuse is always the one that goes first, and then the other two that are left over would be the opposite or adjacent. Okay, so now let's put this into an example that you would use. So it says, given the right triangle below, determine the following ratios. So what is sine, what is cosine, and what is tangent? So if I was doing this without looking at my notes, I would say, okay, well, my teacher showed me SOH CAH TOA. So we're going to write that on the side. So SOH, CAH, and TOA. The more you write it, the more you'll know it. So we know that sine of the angle is the opposite over the hypotenuse. We know that the cosine of the angle is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And we know that the tangent is opposite over adjacent. Now, where's the angle, you might ask? Well, the angle is this thing in here. And you may not have recognized this, but this is a Greek letter called theta. So theta, theta. So it's a Greek letter from the Greek alphabet, and it's the universal math symbol for angle. So whenever you see that, you want to think angle. So this is sine of an angle, cos of an angle, and tangent of an angle, right? So first, we need to label the sides with respect to what we have, or the angle in which we're speaking about. So here is our angle. First things first, we're always going to label the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is directly across from the right angle. Now, with respect to the angle that's given, we've got two sides left. This side is directly across, so that's my opposite side. The 3 is right next to it, or the adjacent side. So 5 is going to be my hypotenuse, 3 is going to be my adjacent, and 4 is going to be my opposite. So all we're going to do now is plug into our formula. So O is opposite, opposite is 4, hypotenuse is 5. So sine would be 4 over 5. Okay, cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse, so 3 over 5. And then last but not least, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So opposite over adjacent, so 4 over 3 is in fact my tangent. And that's it for example number 1. Okay, so in example number 2, we want to find the same thing, the ratios. So it wouldn't hurt to write on top again, SOH, CAH, and then TOA. But what I notice in this picture is that I have a 15 and an 8, and then I have a missing side. So we can't solve it until we know the missing side. And what we have to do with that is called the Pythagorean theorem. So you might have remembered this from middle school. It's a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b are the sides of the triangles. We call those legs. And the C is always your hypotenuse. So the legs are the sides, like I said, sides of the triangles. It doesn't matter which one is which, but the hypotenuse is really the key piece that matters here. So C squared is always my hypotenuse. So if my hypotenuse is directly across from the right angle, that's the thing we need to solve for. That's the unknown. So 8 is going to be a leg, and 15 is going to be a leg. So 8 squared plus 15 squared equals C squared. We're going to plug in 8 squared, which is 64, 15 squared, which is 225, and we're just going to add together the 64 and the 225. You're going to get 289. And then what you're going to do to get C squared by itself is simply take the square root. So you would be left with C equals 17. So that is my hypotenuse. So now that you have all three sides, I'd actually like you to finish this for homework. So I would like you to tell me what is sine of theta, cos of theta, and tan of theta. Here is theta, that is your viewpoint. Label the triangle with respect to opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. And then I'd actually like you to try also example number 3 for homework from start to finish. And we'll go over both of these tomorrow in class. Now remember, you're not going to get credit for this homework assignment if these two problems aren't attempted. All right, that's it, guys. Have a great night.